Jonah, a young Lagos banker, was torn between three ladies. Ronke, pretty and very fetish. Bisi, charming and flashy lifestyle. Janet, homely and very humble. In Jonah's house, the battle rages between the fetish, the high society, and the faithful. Who wins the race? Join me and get the full story. Jonah was a 25-year-old banker living in Lagos. His income was modest but reasonable for someone in his state in life. Usually, he leaves home very early in the morning when many were still asleep and comes home late. He virtually had no time to socialize. The fact is, when he closes from work, he takes out time to attend classes for the professional exams which he was taking. So each time he comes home, he comes looking very tired and most often goes straight to bed. If he must make some reasonable progress at his place of work, he must be seen to have improved himself both on the job and in his academic pursuits. As a result, he hardly had time to mingle with others in social circles. Meanwhile, he remains undecided about marriage, though a number of girls were in his radar right now. His parents too would not let him rest and were anxious to see him settled in marriage. They believed that what the elders see sitting down cannot be seen by a child even while standing on the rooftop. His parents, Ed and Alice, would not let him rest. They were deeply concerned and felt he was leaving the whole issue of marriage too late. They told him point blank that in their own time, he would have got 1 or 2 kids by now. They even pointed at Janet, a very humble and homely lady who comes calling from time to time. They told him that he may just be missing an irreplaceable gem and that such ladies are difficult to come by nowadays. But Jonah will not just budge, telling them that he was just not ready. On that count, he often disagrees with his parents. Yet, the Bible reminds us that children should obey their parents in the Lord, for that is the right thing to do. While all this were going on, Ronke appeared on the scene. Ronke was not only beautiful, but was very charming. She had this beautiful set of eyes that could easily penetrate the heart of any man standing in front of him, including our ever busy Jonah. Her smiles were very infectious, and her presence could take the senses out of any man. She showered Jonah with lots of love and was ever present in his house. Jonah was not one to be easily caught unawares by the beautiful things of life, especially with the type of busy schedule that he keeps. But he discovered that her presence began to unsettle him, and he began to do things that were way outside his usual habits. Because of her, Jonah began to miss out on targets and was no longer his usual self. Even though Jonah appears to have been caught in this seeming cobweb, something still tells him that all is not well with Ronke. Jonah has had stories of women, especially young women, who use charms to tie up a man's heart. At the end of the day, marriages that happen as a result do not come out nice for the spouses. Because of the way things were happening, Jonah became uneasy with Ronke. He had heard Ronke talk and boast about many things that suggests that she was very fetish and had remained on his guard. One day, Jonah became in their need of a writing material. He searched everywhere in the house but could not find one. He therefore decided to search a bag which Ronke hung on the door that leads from the sitting room to the bedroom. What he found was very shocking and disturbing. Then there was Bisi, another very pretty damsel. She was full of love for Jonah, but does not seem to have the stamina to match Ronke's dark powers. She had a very lavish lifestyle and dates a number of men, which explains what funds her expensive lifestyle. It was obvious that Jonah cannot match her expensive lifestyle. Whenever she walks by, neighbors gossip and whisper things like, "A pretty face without character is like a lamp without oil." You cannot identify her with a particular man. Today she is with Mr. X, and tomorrow she will be with Mr. Z. But towering above them all was Janet, a 20-year-old lady full of grace and very humble. She worked a modest 9-to-5 job and she was full of faith. When they told her about Ronke and what her type were capable of doing, she only smiled and said nothing. But deep inside, she felt like, "I am a daughter of Zion, a daughter of the Most High God. He gave me authority and power over serpents and scorpions. I fear no evil." She was very calm and did not flinch. When Jonah's parents got to meet her, they quickly took a liking for her. While searching Ronke's bag for a pen, Jonah discovered, to his surprise, a fetish object. A red piece of cloth laced with cowrie shells and tied together with a black thread. Upon a wooden carving of a man's image. Then a bottle containing something that smells like lavender was attached to the object. He was really not surprised, but was just taken aback. He has had that feeling for a very long time. His discovery today was only a confirmation of what he had always had in mind. Then he began to remember most of the ways she had boasted, the way she had often used words that bordered on things like tying down a man and the man not being able to differentiate between right and wrong, etc. She had always told him stories of how a woman she knew used something made for her by a well-known medicine man to tie down a man and made him powerless in the process. How the woman had eventually dominated even though the man had an existing wife at home. How the woman at home had to pack her things and run away for the evil one to eventually take over the house and control the man's heart, etc. Ronke had just traveled out of town, so Jonah waited for her to come back so as to confront her person to person. Before Ronke traveled, however, she has had a very bitter quarrel with Bisi. Bisi had, without mincing words, told Ronke that she has heard she was using evil powers to make life uncomfortable for her. They had quarreled bitterly over the matter, and Ronke had told her point blank to move far from the house, else she left the threat hanging. But Bisi understood the nature of her threat. She decided to walk away, but not after warning Jonah about what Ronke was capable of doing with her evil powers. She left that day and did not show up there again. For Jonah, her departure was a good riddance to a bad rubbish, as her character flaws were just too many. You never can tell where her problems were coming from, considering her type of lifestyle. While Ronke was away, she decided to consult some in her desperate bid to ensure she holds onto Jonah's heart exclusively. She knew she had already conquered Bisi and had scared that one away. She, however, still had one other person to deal with. That was Janet. But she felt Janet was not an easy one to deal with. Hence, she had gone to look for some more potent medicine. That type that would be very fierce against the perceived enemy. In doing that, however, she did not consider that she was dealing with a more formidable opponent. An opponent whose faith in God does not shake even when the earth is quaking, because she believes in calling on the name of God in the dark hours of one's needs. It was this opponent that she specifically traveled for. Meanwhile, Janet continued in prayers. Like she said, it was the forces of evil against the spirit of the Most High God. At that point, Janet remembered that the Lord has made a promise to those who serve him thus: I have given you authority to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. With Ronke still away, Jonah noticed that there was absolute peace when only Janet was around. Unlike the type of war and disquiet that rages each time Ronke was around. Obviously, the Lord was beginning to touch his heart and beginning to make him differentiate between the quiet of evil and the quiet that comes with peace. So immediately Ronke came back. Jonah confronted her with the things he found in her bag. Immediately she saw what Jonah was holding, she became devastated. She knew the consequences. She began to think maybe that was why she was getting restless in her journey. She had been told that there are consequences, very severe consequences, if the man finds out about the medicine. It was a taboo and must require that sacrifices be made to the gods immediately. But first of all, you have to confess. She then began to confess. She said that the thing was not really to harm Jonah, but was meant to ensure that he loves her to the exclusion of any other woman in his life. That was the reason Bisi had to run away. Bisi had used it also before, but she did not use it well in places where she tried it. Bisi had discovered Ronke's involvement and the potency of the substance. Hence, she had run away eventually. That she, Ronke, had even used it on Janet but she remained impenetrable. Hence, she had gone to get some more potent ones that would immediately send her packing from the house. She said quite a lot of things in the course of her confession and was exhausted. If she must retain her sanity, she said, she must go to the Baba that did the thing and persuade him to help go and sacrifice to the gods in the wilderness, else the end could be very bad. She then left in a hurry for another travel to the place of the medicine man. It did not take long before people got to hear of Ronke's confession, and the gossips began. Janet heard it too, but did not tremble. She recalled the fearlessness of a number of women in the Bible who through great faith were able to sort themselves and the people of God. She remembered Deborah, who saved her people from the evil of their adversaries. She also remembered Esther, who saved her people from the hands of the enemy. She proclaimed that one with God is always majority. She knelt down and prayed, declaring that our struggles is not against flesh and blood, but against powers of darkness. It eventually became obvious to Jonah that being around Janet was much more peaceful. Slowly, his heart turned to Janet. When Ronke heard what was happening, she felt betrayed. Not necessarily by Jonah alone, but also by the whole world, and particularly by the medicine man, who not only misled her, but now, under his mercy, if the spell cast on her must be removed. A few years down the line, however, Janet and Jonah were joyfully married in Lagos. For it is written that he who finds a wife finds a good thing and receives favor from the Lord. So Jonah's story proves that at the end of the road, truth must always overtake lies. And truth has prevailed in this case. Thank you very much for listening. If you like this story, please like, share, and subscribe. But meanwhile, please leave a comment on the comment section of this video. Thank you once again.